Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharane, Prabhu Kripa Hi Kevalam, Kripa Hi Kevalam, Kripa Hi Kevalam, Sharane, Prabhu Kripa Hi Kevalam, Kripa Hi Kevalam, Kripa Hi Kevalam, Sharane, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharane, Sharanagatam, 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 Sharane, Sharanagatam, 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 Sharane, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharane, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namo, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Shri Gurave, Namo Namo, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharane, Ram Krishna, Jaya Jaya Ram Krishna, 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 Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharane, Jai Jai Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Ram Krishna Sharanam, Sharane.
Om Ya Pritiravivekānām Vishayeshu Anapāyini Tvām Anusmarata Sāme Hridayānmāpasarpatu Tvameva Mātā ca Pitā Tvameva Bandhusca Sakhā Tvameva Vidyā Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. That intense love which the ignorant bear towards the objects of the world, may I have that same intensity of love for thee, for thou art my mother, thou my father, thou my only friend and companion, thou art my wealth and my only knowledge, thou art my all in all, O Lord of Lords. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So this morning, as some of you know, maybe all of you know, it's question and answers. And so the talk depends on you. I didn't come with any, sometimes when I have question and answers, I have something to begin with, but I have nothing to begin with today. So I need some sort of question to get started, and Chandralekha has one here in the front.
I have two more.
Two questions, okay, that's all right.
The first one is, I was told in history that Buddhism started from Sankhya. Is that right?
It's difficult to say. Certainly, there is a connection between Buddhism and Sankhya and Yoga. You know, in the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, there are 3 pairs, Nyaya Vaisheshika, Nyaya logic, and Vaisheshika atomism. And then you have Sankhya and Yoga, and then Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa, which means Vedanta. And so each of the pairs are related to each other, and each of them sort of operate on the same level as each other. That is, Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa, that is the Mimamsakas and Vedanta, they seem very, very different. Both of them are metaphysical systems. But Sankhya and Yoga are closely related, and they are cosmological and psychological. Metaphysical also, but the emphasis is on cosmology and psychology. And so Buddhism shows a very great connection, a strong historical connection to Sankhya and to Yoga. And since Yoga itself seems to be, is closely associated with Sankhya, we speak of Sankhya as sort of the larger whole tradition, of which yoga is one part and traditional Sankhya is another part. But speaking of Sankhya as the whole, including both. So then, yes, Buddhism certainly is heavily indebted to Sankhya philosophy, and there are various ways that you can show that. Now, there are striking differences between them also. And that's why the Buddhism became a non-orthodox school. In fact, the Buddhists said that we are not Vaidika. We don't accept the Vedas, and therefore they became Nastikas. Nastikas, as some of you know, in the Hindu tradition, Nastika, meaning it doesn't exist, doesn't mean atheist. Because the Sankhya philosophers were atheists. They didn't believe in God. They didn't believe in Brahman. Nastika means that they don't accept the Vedas. And so the Buddhists, as Swami Vivekananda said, the Buddhists were the first, or rather, let me restate it. He said that it was with the arising of Buddhism in India that the idea that there are different separate religions arose. Before that, the Vedic idea was that religion is natural to human beings, and it's expressed in many different ways. But religion is one thing, sort of like philosophy is one thing. You have different schools of philosophy, but they're all philosophy. You have different schools of scientific cosmology, some who believe in the Big Bang, some who don't believe in the Big Bang, etc. But they're all physics, and they're all cosmology. And so the Vedic idea was that religion is something intrinsic to the human being, an intrinsic search for meaning, for value, and for reality. And so it's done in many different ways. The Buddhists put an end to that because the Buddhists said that we're not like you. We don't accept you. We're outside of the Vedic tradition and we are different. Buddhism is still doing the same thing now. Buddhism, as Swami Vivekananda said, and I have great regard for Buddhism. I've studied Buddhism a lot. I taught Buddhist philosophy at our training center in Belar Math for the last several years before coming here. So I have great regard for the Buddhist tradition, for Buddhist practice, and the religious system, as well as for the Buddha himself. But as Swami Vivekananda said, the danger in every reform movement is that they define themselves by what they're against, by their reform against something else. So Buddhism defined itself as we're not like you Hindus. So that goes on to the present day, where Buddhists are very particular about defining themselves separately from other systems of thought. There's a very strong, you could almost say intrinsic, it doesn't have to be, but it has become intrinsic to the Buddhist tradition. Nonetheless, Buddhism has a number of connections to the Sankhya philosophy. They didn't accept the idea of the Purusha, which is central to Sankhya. They didn't accept the idea that creation comes by the connection of Purusha and Prakriti. They didn't accept the Sankhya idea of Prakriti. But in smaller details, they took many things from Sankhya. And that's probably because the Buddha, before his enlightenment, he took several teachers. Some of them seem to have been Jaina because of his extreme austerity, where he had almost starved himself to death and realized that that doesn't give the truth. It just weakens the brain and the body. But also some of his teachers seem to have been Sankhya Yoga teachers. And I'll just mention certain things like the 4 Brahma Viharas in Buddhism. The meditation on Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. That is, meditation on friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and indifference. Those are in the Yoga Sutra. The Ashtanga Marga, the Arya Ashtanga Marga of the Buddhists, the yoga system is the Ashtanga Marga. The steps are different, but the idea of dividing this, the system into 8 steps. And there are many other things where there are connections between Buddhism and Sankhya. And also, as you see in the Gita, Sri Krishna in the, it's the end of the 2nd chapter, which we just did, where Sri Krishna talks about Brahma Nirvana. He says that Esha Brahmi Stiti Parata Nainam Prapya Vibhushyati Stitvasyam Antakalepi Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. That this great attainment that I have described to you, having attained to this, there is no sorrow. That having attained to being established in this, one goes to Brahma Nirvana. So Buddha also took the word Nirvana, but defined it differently. And that's why the Brahma Nirvana is significant, because Brahma Nirvana means, as Sri Krishna says it, being identified with Brahman, the individuality merging into Brahman. Nirvana means snuffed out, and so like a candle being snuffed out. And so one's individuality is extinguished in the infinite individuality of Brahman. But Buddha said that Nirvana just means snuffing out, that the individuality is gone, but there's no Brahma. So anyway, it's a complicated question, and the roots of how that connection took place are unknown now, but it's assumed that some of the teachers of the Buddha must have been Sankhya teachers. So 2nd question. Okay, she had one more question, and then we'll go to Ajay. Chandralekha, you said you had 2 questions. Okay. Yeah. If you remember the 2nd one.
The 2nd question, if Buddhism started as a revelation against the Hinduism, I mean Sanatana Dharma,
Yeah.
then why Buddha is regarded as one avatar?
Yes.
And then, if he is avatar, his teachings and Gita's teaching, I mean, one is Ahimsa Param Dharma, another go and fight, no problem. So why they are so different, the teachings?
Yes. Now that's as I found, it's a controversial question. For me, it's not controversial, so I'll give an answer. But my answer is others consider controversial. so I'm warning you that there are many people who don't accept, don't like my answer. I don't believe that Buddha was an incarnation. I believe he was an illumined soul. He was a great saint. But I don't think he was an incarnation. Why? Because he himself denied the existence of God. And he never claimed that he was an incarnation. He claimed that he had attained to the state he attained to through many births of tapasya, many births of practice. He finally attained to a birth where he was the Buddha. So that's not the idea of an avatara. An avatara is God who comes down in human form freely. The Buddha always maintained that he was a human being who over many lifetimes, 500 lifetimes, had perfected his compassion, and finally in the last lifetime he had the power to break through the veil of illusion and attain to the highest experience, and then to teach it to others. So I don't accept Buddha as an incarnation because he didn't accept it. If he were an incarnation of God, he certainly would have known it, and he wouldn't have denied God. Now, why is that answer controversial? It's controversial in our circle because Sri Ramakrishna said that Buddha was an incarnation. But when Sri Ramakrishna said Buddha was an incarnation, there's a great difference between his saying that and his speaking of Christ and of Sri Chaitanya and Rama and Krishna and so forth. He said, he who was Rama and he who was Krishna has been born again, and this as Ramakrishna. There he clearly says that he who was Rama and he who was Krishna is now Ramakrishna. He saw his identity with Sri Chaitanya. He had a vision of Christ and saw Christ enter into himself and realized his identity with Christ. He never said anything like that about Buddha. Never anything about Buddha. My belief is that when Ramakrishna said that Buddha was an incarnation, he was speaking that the Hindu tradition accepts Buddha as an incarnation. And that's okay with him. Sri Ramakrishna didn't come to destroy. Whether Buddha is accepted as an incarnation, the Sri Ramakrishna was not going to, he was not the type who was out to destroy people's faith and ideas and so forth. He was not going to say, no, Buddha was not an incarnation for this, that, and the other reason. But you find Swamiji never spoke of Buddha as an incarnation, except that he said that the Hindu way of incorporating Buddha back into Hinduism was to take him as an incarnation of God. He didn't say he was an incarnation of God. Swamiji never said that. In fact, there's a great deal of evidence that Swamiji himself realized that he had been the Buddha, and that he was the one who had been born as Buddha, and Swamiji is not regarded as an incarnation of God. Swamiji said on various occasions that I'm glad that I had a normal human birth from normal human parents. Because he said that he identified with humanity. So now getting to the question why the Hindus made Buddha an incarnation, that's part of the greatness of Hinduism and part of Hinduism that we should never forget. And I say this whenever the occasion arises because it's important in modern Hinduism. There are people who criticize us, the Vedanta Society, because we have pictures of Jesus and a Buddha. That, oh, you're not Hindus. If you were good Hindus, you wouldn't have pictures of Jesus and Buddha here. You would just have Hindu deities, because we are not Buddhist. That's foolishness. Such people who say that are not good Hindus. They are the ones who are not good Hindus for saying that. Hinduism has always been inclusive, has always been assimilative, has always taken in the good from anywhere that it's found. To make of Hinduism one more narrow little religion that says, no, you're not us, get rid of that. No Hindu should ever send a Christmas card to anybody because that's not Hindu, and this is not Hindu. Keeping a picture of Christ. How many times I've told people, and people around the world are so impressed, that traveling in India, you go to a small village, and there you find, in a shrine, you see pictures of all these deities, and there among the deities will be a picture of Christ. That's because they are Hindu. That's because, how many churches have you been into where along with the crucifix they have Ganesha and Shiva and Kali and Durga? How many have you seen that? It's because we are Hindu that we can have these pictures and recognize them as great. Another story I've told many times, that, and including here, I've told it a couple of times already. When I was at Mayavati, posted at Mayavati back in the 1970s, it was 1979 in fact, a Christian monk that I had met in America, he visited the ashram where I joined. I heard that he was coming to India, and so I wrote to him and told him, please come to visit us in the Himalayas. And he wrote back, well, I would love to. And so I sent him all the information, how to get there, everything. He ended up going to Bellarmut, meeting Swami Nirvanananda ji and other senior Swamis. He went to Varanasi and met a Swami friend of mine, and then he came to Mayavati. And so I had told the villagers that there's a sadhu from my country coming, but he's not Hindu, he's a Christian. And they knew basically, they didn't know the doctrines of Christianity, but they knew that it was a different religion because there was a settlement of Anglo-Indians nearby where they had a Christian church and all of that. So the local people, though they were pretty much untouched by modern civilization, they knew what Christians were in general. So I told him that he's a Christian sadhu, not a Hindu sadhu, but he's coming to visit us from his monastery in America. So when he came, I showed him around, and one day he stayed with us several days. One day I was walking with him through the forest around the ashram, And suddenly a group of villagers were coming in the other direction towards us. And as they came towards us, they put down their tools. They were out for chopping leaves and things for their cows. They put their tools down, then came over to make a pranam to the sadhu and to me, to the Christian monk and to me. There's a Christian monk who was wearing his white robes with the black scapular and all of that, so he's obviously not a Hindu sannyasi. They were coming up to him to touch his feet, and he said, oh, no, tell them that I'm not one of them. Tell them I'm not one of them. And I said, it doesn't matter at all to them. They know that you're not. I told them already that you're a Christian, not a Hindu, but they respect you because you're a monk, because you're a holy man. It doesn't matter to them at all. These are unlettered villagers from Kumaon in Uttarakhand, a remote area. These are not people who have read Sri Ramakrishna and decided suddenly in modern times that we should respect all religions. No, it's because they're Hindu, because it's in their blood that I should respect holiness wherever I see it. That they come and see a sadhu from another religion and they go to make pranam. He was deeply impressed with that. And to think that there are now people who want to deny that greatness of the Hindu tradition and say that no, we're not like them, we're not like them, we're not like them. We have to define ourselves and we have to put up walls and you're outside, we're inside. No, that's a travesty. So, coming back to your question, the Hindu way of responding to the Buddha was, who defined himself as outside of Hinduism, was to bring him inside and to make him one of the Dasha avatars, one of the 10 avatars. And so that again is part of the greatness of Buddhism, of Hinduism. And as Swami Vivekananda said, that Vaishnavism, which Swamiji had great love for, and Sri Ramakrishna had always been a Vaishnava. The Vaishnavism was, along with Mahakali, who came later to Sri Ramakrishna, but he was fundamentally a Vaishnava. And then Mahakali took him over, but he remained a Vaishnava as well as a Shakta after that. I forgot the point I was going to make about Sri Ramakrishna and his, Swamiji said that the Vaishnavas were the modern Vaishnavism was the result of bringing Buddhism back into Hinduism. That the Vaishnava ethics of compassion, jive, doya, etc., all of that, ahimsa and all of that was a result of the Vaishnavas internalizing the Buddhist ethics. And it's a fact that the Shankaracharya began the process of bringing India back from the Buddhists. The last step of that was done by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bengal and Kashmir were two of the last strongholds of Buddhism. It had disappeared practically in other parts of India, but they were the last strongholds. And so Sri Chaitanya opened up Hinduism to everyone. And many Buddhists came back into the fold of Hinduism through the Vaishnavas. In fact, as many people have said, scholars included, the Jagannath temple in Puri was a Buddhist temple. And the deities were the three Ratna, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But they were reformed as the Lord Jagannath. So a number of Vaishnava temples, not just the Jagannath Puri, were actually Buddhist temples that were repurposed as Hindu temples. And so, again, that's part of the greatness of Hinduism, that it allows that kind of thing. And if it's allowed to in time, Hinduism will incorporate other religions of the world, not by trying to destroy them, but by accepting them, by saying, yes, what you do is fine. Come, we have no problem. That was the thing that shocked and alarmed the Christian missionaries. That in India they would say that this is Jesus and he is God, and this is why he is God and everything. And then Hindus say, yes, we'll take his picture and put it. And say, well, you have to get rid of the other pictures. Well, no, we don't. We don't have to get rid of the other pictures. We'll take him as one of ours too. And so That is one of the greatnesses of Hinduism, is that it is inclusive, not exclusive. Hindu society might have, and there are various historical reasons for that, it might have become exclusive as a society. But as Swamiji said, as a religion, it was not exclusive. As a religion, it was inclusive. Yes, Ajay. Did you want to say something?
I just said that it's very interesting that Hinduism as a religion was not exclusive, but as people social.
Yes, and just before you begin, Ajay, let me just say to that, because it's connected to what I was just saying, that Swami Vivekananda found that always interesting also. He said that in the West, society was very open, but religion was extremely exclusive. Christianity is the only way, and even within Christianity, different denominations, different sampradayas as we would call them, say that we are the only true form of Christianity. Whereas in India, just the opposite was true, that society was restricted, but religion was wide open. So, Ajay.
Yeah, I could sit here and ask you 10 questions, okay, because I'm reading 3 or 4 inspired talks by Swami Vivekananda.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
I've got another book I'm reading, but again...
So begin with what?
Second one is I forget it, but I just bought it. And trying to see that what I find is there's so much noise in the field of religions. I want this, I want this, I want this. And we focus so much on this noise. What is the fundamentals? Fundamentals are essentially the same when you look at 10 Commandments. When you Buddhism, I go to a Buddhist temple. But again, ceremonies, for example. Swami Vivekananda says ceremonies are not that important, right? So I come back and I say, look, what is the relationship between ignorance, action, knowledge, and deliverance? And I've been to many lectures here. How do I tie them together to create a very simple way of life so I can get to him? And then Krishna says in Gita, hey, just believe in me. Even if you don't believe in me, do something, I'll come to you.
Yes.
I'm just trying to see that. And then, in my life, I think everybody knows, my wife is Christian.
Yes.
I've never asked her, never pushed her. And I've seen one versus the other, okay? And people don't understand that. I think that tolerance is the name of the forgiveness and tolerance. I find the essential virtues. I would like to know what you think. Ignorance, knowledge, action, and deliverance.
Yes. No, that's very good. Let me back up, addressing your statement, but let me back up from that a bit and say that one of our Swamis, a very great Swami who's passed away many years ago, Swami Shanta Swarupananda. He was the first head of the Berkeley Center under Swami Ashokananda. Very great Swami, a disciple of Swami Shivananda. Who's over here, I think. He used to say that whenever religion becomes complicated, know that there's some compromise, meaning there's something wrong if religion becomes complicated, because basic religion is simple. When there are complications, it means that you're fudging somewhere. You're unnecessarily making things complicated. And if you read Swami Vivekananda, you see that he made religion extremely simple. He just put it in terms of very simple statements. Like religion is the manifestation of the perfection already within, the divinity already within. Sri Ramakrishna made religion very simple. Holy Mother made religion extremely simple. The direct disciples made religion very simple because it is simple. There's a verse I sometimes chant here at the beginning of talks, which says, Vishnur va tripurantako bhavatu va brahma surendrota va bhanur va shashalakshanota bhagavan buddhota siddhota va ragadvesha visharti moharahita sattvanukampodyato Yas sarvai saha samskrito gunaganais tasmai namah sarvada. That says that the Supreme Reality and its messengers are known by various names in various traditions. But as for me, the author of the verse says, but as for me, I offer my worship always to the one going by any name and belonging to any tradition, who is free from attachment and hatred, free from worldliness and delusion, who is filled with compassion towards all living beings and is possessed of all noble virtues. So that is religion. That is religion. And it's the recognition of that that allows Hinduism to be so broad. That religion can manifest in various ways. But wherever you see those qualities, there you have spirituality. So religion means spirituality. Religion doesn't mean rituals. Religion doesn't mean stories. Religion doesn't mean holy books. Religion doesn't mean a particular prophet. All of those things are fine. And Hinduism provides whatever, as much ritual as you want. It provides as many stories as you want. Where do you find as many stories as you have in Hinduism about different heroes and so forth? It supplies as much philosophy as you want. But basic religion is extremely simple. And so that we should never forget. Because when we make it complicated and then begin to think that the complications are what mean religion, then we get into fights with everyone. Why do we believe that all religions are basically true? Because in all the great religions you find men and women of exalted character. You find men and women of a vast heart, great unselfishness, great truthfulness, great honesty, great goodness. And so how could that come out of something bad? As Swami Vivekananda would scold Western audiences, that according to you, he would say to a Western audience, that a person can be very good, can be full of all virtues, can be a wonderful person, but because he doesn't say, I believe in Jesus Christ, therefore he's going to hell. Well, what kind of God is that? You've made a demon of God. I wouldn't worship such a God. As Swami Vivekananda said, I would spend my life fighting such a God. What kind of God is that? Who says that you can be good, you can be unselfish, you can be pure-hearted, you can be loving, and yet because you don't say, I believe in Jesus Christ, therefore you're going to hell for eternity. Going to hell and suffering in hell for eternity. Now, many liberal Christians don't accept that view themselves now, but that was the traditional view, and it's still the view of many. So what kind of God is that? Is that a God you want to worship? Somebody who's going to do that to people? I felt so proud of my own father, speaking personally for a moment, who all his life was a conservative Christian, not fundamentalist, he was never a fundamentalist, but he was a conservative Christian, life centered around the church and everything. But in his old age, when he was in his upper 80s, he told me, I can't believe in a God that would send somebody to eternal hell because they made some mistakes here. So I thought, yes, he's still at this age, his mind is still processing and still thinking about these things and coming to new conclusions. I was so proud of him to hear him say that, because it was contrary to his former belief, contrary to what he'd believed. But in his late 80s, he'd come to that conclusion, showing that religious growth, inner growth, spiritual growth is not limited by age. Again, back to your question, that basic religion is simple. It's not even about belief, and that's why Hinduism is not a creedal religion. Some religions state that I, as a follower of this religion, I believe this, I believe this, I believe this, and I believe this, and that's what makes me a follower of this religion. Where in Hinduism have you ever found what's called a catechism or a statement of creed? I am a Hindu because I believe this. There are Hindus nowadays who are trying to make such a creed, and again, because they're trying to make Hinduism into a limited religion like other religions, thinking that thereby they're serving Hinduism. No, they're not serving Hinduism. They're making it a narrow little creed. Hinduism is not a creedal religion. Hinduism believes that the essence of religion is who you are and what you become. And whatever methods you use to become spiritual, that is good. Use them. Just don't say that other people using different methods are wrong. If you are really religious, show it in your life. Don't show it in your words and your dogmatic statements and your hatred for others and all of that. That's not showing religion. That's showing some disease of the mind. Show your religion, show your spirituality by showing that it has made a difference in your life, that it has changed your mind, it has changed your heart, it has changed your behavior. That's the proof of religion. Yes. And then we'll come to Swapna. First here in the front, and then back to Swapna. Yes.
Swamiji, I have two questions. Now, I have multiple questions, but I have primarily two at this time.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Raghavendra. My mother gave me that name because she believed in Raghavendra. In south of India, Raghavendra is associated with Mantralaya. I don't know if you heard about that.
Associated with?
Mantralaya in south. He is considered as one of the gods, may not be incarnation. His main attribute is inquiry, ask questions. My mother used to tell me that is the reason I gave you that name.
Because she wanted you to inquire, or because you were always asking questions? Or both?
When I studied Mantralaya and Raghavendra, then I liked him because he keeps questioning. Anyway, first question is, I was asking Ditin several months ago, what is prana?
What is what?
What is prana?
Prana.
Because I'm curious, because it is related to energy. And my understanding is prana is the breath, which is associated with air. So that's the reason medical practice is, they say if a person is dying, they put oxygen first. Okay, because oxygen is the source of energy. Then I keep questioning that by giving more oxygen, you cannot revive the dead person. So in that case, what is prana? Then if we study more about it, there is emphasis on pranayama. Then which they say it leads to mind control automatically, eventually nirvana.
Okay, well let me address that, and then if you have a second question, we'll come to that after speaking about prana. So first of all, prana does mean energy, but prana has two basic meanings. One is energy in general, any kind of energy, the energy which makes a car go, the energy which is causing the sun to shine. But the more restricted meaning of prana, which is used a great deal and which is used in pranayama, which is used in the yoga shastras, etc., that's speaking of the vital energy. That which is the energy which differentiates a living system from a non-living system. Now that's something which science does not yet accept, because science doesn't accept that there is a vital energy. There have been Western thinkers, like in almost modern, in near recent times, there was Henri Bergson, the French philosopher, who had the idea of the élan vital, the vital energy. But in general, in modern Western scientific thinking, there's no idea of a vital force which differentiates the living from the dead. Basically, the difference between a dead body and a living body is that in the living body, everything is working, and in the dead body, it stopped working. That's the difference. But the Hindu idea is, and the Chinese idea, in Chinese medicine, they have the idea of the qi, which is the same thing. Qi in Chinese is prana in Sanskrit. So the Indian idea and the Chinese idea is that there is a vital energy which animates a living body, and when that body dies, it's not just that the mechanism has broken like a machine, but that the prana has stopped maintaining the vehicle and has left the body. And so prana in that sense is the vital energy. It does not mean breath. It often is translated as breath. And people make a connection between that and the Judeo-Christian idea that, and the Muslim idea that God breathed his breath into Adam, and that's what brought Adam to life. But that shouldn't be taken as physical air. In pranayama, we control the breath, and that lends credence to the idea that prana means breath, because in pranayama we're controlling the breath. But as Swami Vivekananda explains in Raja Yoga, in pranayama we're not controlling the breath. We're using the breath to grab hold of the prana, which is the energy which controls all of our vital, physical and mental functions. The prana is that which animates the mind and animates the body as well. It's the prana that animates both. It's the animating energy within a living system. So through pranayama, by controlling the rhythm of the breath, we can get hold of the prana, which is animating the breath and other vital functions. Why approach the prana through the breath? Because the breath is an unusual part of our system. It's something that we normally do unconsciously. It just goes on through the autonomic nervous system. You don't normally think about breathing, and you don't have to stop and think, oh gee, did I forget to breathe? I better start breathing right now because I forgot to breathe. No, it just goes on. But you can think about the breath and control it at the same time. So it's both it can be under conscious control, and it can go on automatically as well. And so it's a place where you can get control over both aspects of the nervous system. And so it has a special function to play. By consciously controlling the breath, you get into the prana, which normally is functioning unconsciously. So prana means that vital energy. Now, is that just a Hindu theory that should be dispensed with by modern scientific thinking people? No. Because like other things in the basic teachings of Hinduism, it is experiential. A person can come to the point where they experience prana as the living vital force, just as it was in traditional Chinese thinking. The acupuncture and acupressure and all of those things were ways of directing the qi, which means the prana, in the body. And for the Chinese, for those who were yogis in China, Taoist yogis or Buddhist yogis, they also got in touch with the prana and learned how to direct it, how to control it. And so the prana is something which is experiential. It's not the self. So in the Vedantic view of an individual, you have the consciousness, which is the central part of the individual being. You are a conscious being, otherwise you're not sentient. It's consciousness which makes you a recognizably living being. But consciousness and prana are different. Prana is not conscious. Prana can be brought under conscious control. Right now it's prana which is making your digestion work. It's making the unconscious mind work. It's making your nervous system work. It's making the blood flow. It's making the heart pump. It's doing so many things that you're not aware of. And so prana is not in itself conscious. And yet it keeps this organism going, the body and the mind, so that consciousness remains in this body. What happens at death is that the prana leaves the body, and as the Upanishads, more than one Upanishad say, when the prana leaves the body, all of the senses leave it, and the jiva, the individual consciousness, also leaves the body along with the prana. Wherever the prana goes, there the jiva and the sense organs, the sense powers go. They say it's like when the queen bee leaves the hive, all of the bees follow along. And there's some beautiful stories in the Upanishads talking about that. How the different factors in the individual said that I am the greatest. I'm the most important in the human individual. And then prana said, no, I'm the most important. And they all challenged prana. And so then prana began to leave, and everybody had to follow along like a slave of prana, showing that prana was the most important. So that's prana. It's a vital energy. So a second question.
Okay, my second question is, try to understand Chaitanya and Purusha are supposed to be synonymous terms. And the second term we get exposed to is Prakriti. Prakriti is different from Purusha.
Yes.
Purusha is supposed to be the main controller, Prakriti, according to Sankhya, doesn't have the controlling factor. Basically, Prakriti is supposed to be created by Purusha.
Not created by Purusha, but anyway,
Right.
I'll talk about Purusha and Prakriti, the difference in Chaitanya also. Is there any more to the question, or is that?
Yes, there is more to that. The logics of this is Chaitanya, Purusha, is the main creator. And Shakti, we keep getting exposed to, he represents the energy. Energy, according to Einstein, is related to matter.
Yes, okay, well that's
No,
enough,
sir.
that's enough for me. That would take us beyond the end of the
Now
time.
let
So
me ask the question. If the energy is related to matter, which is Prakriti, then why should I pray God, Kali, as same as Purusha? I'm questioning why I should consider Kali as same as Purusha. Thank you.
Okay, well now in those terms, there's a lot of confusion of terms there. Purusha is not the creator. Purusha is used in the Sankhya, meaning the individual consciousness. In Sankhya, there are many Purushas. My true self is the Purusha, your true self is another Purusha, Suren's true self is another Purusha. The ant walking across the yard has another Purusha. Each living sentient being has a separate Purusha, and each Purusha is infinite. And Prakriti is completely separate, Prakriti is nature. But bondage comes when the Purusha identifies with Prakriti and thinks that it is part of Prakriti. Prakriti means nature, but nature not in the Western sense. And the West has a very different meaning when we say nature. Like this is not nature, but nature is out there in the forest somewhere. In the Sankhya, nature means everything that is experienced with a D, experienced. Purusha is that which experiences. Purusha is the light of consciousness, and everything that can be experienced by the Purusha is Prakriti. So the mind is Prakriti, the thoughts are Prakriti, the buddhi is Prakriti, the ego is Prakriti, the external world is Prakriti. Everything that is an object of consciousness is Prakriti. So that's Sankhya. But Vedanta doesn't accept that dualism. It says that Prakriti is an appearance of the self, of the Atman. So they use Atman instead of Purusha, but they could have used the word Purusha. There's nothing wrong with the word. But when they speak of Atman, they speak of the conscious reality which you are, but they say that there can't be many infinites, because my infinite would limit your infinite, would limit everyone else's infinite. And so there's only one infinite, and that is the Atman. And so the Atman is one, but it appears as many. And Prakriti, nature, is only an appearance of the Atman, or the Purusha, if you want to use that term. That is, that the self imagines this world into being, and then sees it as an object. But that's the basic ignorance, is to think that I am separate from the world that I perceive. This world appears within me, appears within my consciousness. So now, this is a difficult subject, so it would take an hour to explain the question, but let me come to your part about Kali and Einstein's theory that E equals mc squared, etc. So now Einstein, he showed that matter and energy are equivalent. That matter is just a state of energy. E equals mc squared. The c squared is only to make the units of measurement equal. The basic equation is E equals m, and c squared is just to make the units of measurement equal. Like if you're trying to compare Fahrenheit and centigrade, you need some other numbers in there to make them the same, to show that they're the same. So energy equals matter. What was he showing? He was showing that matter as we know it is really a state of energy as we know it. So the energy he was talking about was physical energy, measurable energy, energy which we can see and test and measure with physical instruments. He wasn't talking about prana, because prana has not been measured, it hasn't been discovered. Prana is beyond our present physical instrumentation. It may be at some point where it will be detectable, but at present it's not detectable. So he was saying that physical energy as we experience it and as we measure it is equal to matter as we experience it and as we measure it. Now, Shakti, the divine energy, which is Kali, that's speaking of the primordial energy, the creative energy that is the source of everything, the source of matter, the source of mind, the source of energy, the source of thought, the source of everything. So that's that's the creative energy itself, which is one with the divine. That Shiva and Shakti, Shiva and Kali, Shiva and Shakti, are the same reality. Shakti is the dynamic aspect. As Sri Ramakrishna explained it, the snake at rest and the snake in motion are the same snake. But the snake at rest is like Shiva, and the snake in motion is like Kali. So Kali does not mean physical energy. Einstein was only speaking of physical energy. And that is equivalent to matter. As Swami Vivekananda said, that both physical matter and physical energy can be resolved into something higher, which is mind. And mind can be resolved into something higher, which is consciousness. And so E equals mc squared is referring to that. So that doesn't say anything about Kali. Kali is the primordial energy, which is a long ways from scientific measurement. It can't be measured. It can be experienced, as Sri Ramakrishna saw the Divine Mother Kali. And when you hear that Sri Ramakrishna saw the Divine Mother Kali, don't think that he just saw a form. Suddenly I'm sitting here meditating and suddenly a form appears and that's Mother Kali and that's all there is to it. No. We can have an experience like that where we just have a vision of the Divine Mother's form. But Sri Ramakrishna knew Mother Kali through and through. He identified with Mother Kali, so he knew Mother Kali in her true nature, not just as the picture that we worship. In fact, when he saw the image of Mother Kali in Dakshineshwar, he said, "Oh Mother, are you just a stone?" In time, he came to realize who the real Mother Kali was. So Mother Kali is not physical energy, nor is Mother Kali measurable. Mother Kali is the very primordial reality out of which creation has come. So let me leave time for Swapna's question, because I had seen her raise her hand, and I'll address her question.
It's not coming on. Maharaj, after all this philosophical talk, my question is very mundane.
Okay.
It's the question. It's sort of based on what Mr. Rao said, but more. Anyway, let me ask the question. Now, when one gets initiated, especially outside of the order, from the order, I mean from Ramakrishna order, especially outside, the persons get initiated under Thakur's name and his Bija Mantra. Now, that is what the devotees are told, that you're supposed to do this mantra twice or whatever the Guru says. Now, how do you merge? Like, for example, the devotee who has been given that initiation doesn't feel very close to Thakur, but feels closer to Mother because of the fact that the feeling of the devotee is Thakur is too much demanding, like you said the other day. He's very miserly in giving out spiritual help, whereas Mother is Mother. So, but when you're doing the japa, you are told to think about Thakur, relate to him, but that feeling of bonding is not so strong as it would be with Mother. So how do you unite the two?
Well, first let me clear up a very widespread misunderstanding, and that is that one can also ask for the mantra of Holy Mother. It's not just Thakur. but at the time of initiation, you could ask for mother's name or Thakur's name. And some gurus give both, but that's rare, but there are some gurus who give both. But coming to the question itself, Sri Ramakrishna we address as Sarvadeva Devi Swarupaya Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, who is the embodiment of all gods and goddesses. And so one reason why Sri Ramakrishna is usually given in initiation is that we can see any god or goddess through Sri Ramakrishna. And so we can look on him as mother, we can look on him as Krishna, we can look on him as Rama, we can, in fact, one of my friends in Velamad, I shouldn't say friend because he's senior to me by several years, a very fine old Swami, a very simple Swami, South Indian Swami. He is extremely devoted to Rama. And so I told him that, Maharaj, between you and Swami Brahmananda, there's no Ramakrishna left for the rest of us. Because Swami Brahmananda, at the time of his passing, said, I want the Krishna of my Ramakrishna. And you're always saying, I want the Rama of my Ramakrishna. And so what's left for us? All the gods and goddesses can be seen through Sri Ramakrishna. And so one of the things about Sri Ramakrishna is that many find that in the beginning that he's difficult to approach. Many people feel immediate attraction to Sri Ramakrishna, but there are many others who find him difficult to approach. But as one goes on through the years, praying to Sri Ramakrishna and meditating on him, then one begins to find that he's extraordinarily attractive. And then one can address him as mother. As Holy Mother addressed Sri Ramakrishna, she looked on Sri Ramakrishna as Kali. And when Sri Ramakrishna passed away, Holy Mother went running up to his room and grabbed his feet and said, "Oh, Ma Kali, where have you gone? Where have you gone, Ma Kali?" Revealing that that was her way of looking on Sri Ramakrishna. And so, by praying to Sri Ramakrishna, by repeating his name, by looking at his picture, one finds in time the attractive power of Sri Ramakrishna taking over the mind. Now again, there are people who feel attracted to Sri Ramakrishna from the beginning. He's their main attraction. That doesn't mean that such people are higher than people who have a hard time. It just means that their temperaments are different. But even those who at first are not attracted to Sri Ramakrishna, they'll find in time that that attraction grows stronger and stronger, but it takes time. So if one has been initiated with the name of Sri Ramakrishna, if one goes on praying and meditating on Sri Ramakrishna, in time one will find that he begins to take over the heart. And that he is Holy Mother, he is the Ma Durga, he is Kali, he is all of the gods and goddesses. And we can see in him any god or goddess that we choose. And so if our attraction is to some aspect of the divine, whether it's Holy Mother or Durga or Kali or Krishna or whatever, then we can consciously think at the beginning of our meditation that we are praying to that deity and then merge them into Sri Ramakrishna and try to see that deity manifesting through Sri Ramakrishna. So I'll stop here. I don't want to go overtime today, which is a bad habit I have. I'm not going to today. Let me give a closing chant and then I'll give announcements, which will which will explain why I don't want to go overtime today. Om Dyo Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithvi Shanti Apa Shanti Oshadhaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Sama Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace is in the heavens, peace is in the sky, peace is on earth. Peace is in the waters, peace in the plants and the trees. The gods are peace. Peace is the nature of truth. All is peace. Peace alone, peace. May that peace, real peace, be with us all. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe. So for announcements, we'll have